I have a question for you,
Yeah.
and I want you to be brutally honest with yourself for just a second. How many times have you started a New Year, New Me kick, maybe on a Monday morning or the first of the month, and you feel absolutely invincible? You've got the plan, the energy, the vision board is up,
Hmm.
and then you crash and burn by, like, Friday afternoon.
It's the universal human experience. I mean, if you actually look at the data on behavioral change, that crash and burn is way more common than the success story. We are just wired to revert back to what's comfortable.
Exactly. We buy the new running shoes, we throw out all the junk food, we make this huge, terrifying to-do list, we sprint right out of the gate, and 5 days later,
Hmm.
back on the couch, ordering takeout, feeling like a total failure.
Yeah.
So today we're doing a deep dive into a really fascinating protocol from a content creator who goes by Simon is Squared.
Ah, yeah. This is a source that's been making the rounds lately. It takes a very different angle on self-improvement. It's basically a guide on how to gamify your own growth.
And what I love about this is the target audience. It is not written for those hyper-productive hustle culture people who already wake up at 4 a.m. to take ice baths.
No, not at all. It's such a compelling framework because it's designed specifically for people who might identify as, well, a bit lazy.
Or undefined.
Yeah.
Or just easily bored.
Right. It hacks the brain's reward system by treating your life literally, and I mean literally, like a video game.
The habit stacking protocol. But before we get into the levels and the cheat codes, and oh, there are cheat codes, we have to unpack why we fail in the first place. The source makes this really interesting, almost counterintuitive point right off the bat. We fail because we get overexcited.
It sounds wrong, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We're always taught that excitement is the fuel.
It's supposed to be the most important thing.
But the source argues, and psychology really backs this up, that excitement is good for starting, but it's actually toxic for sustaining.
Toxic how?
Yeah.
Isn't being excited about a new goal like a requirement?
Well, high excitement usually leads to that all or nothing approach. You try to change your diet, your sleep, your workout, and your reading habits all in one 24-hour window. You just overload the system.
Yeah.
Your brain relies on homeostasis. You can think of it like a biological thermostat. It craves stability. So if you crank the heat up by 50 degrees instantly, the system just revolts. It fights to bring you back to your baseline.
It's like trying to run a marathon when you haven't even walked around the block in a year. Your body just shuts down.
Precisely. And here is the key statistic from the source that really sets the stage for everything else. It takes approximately 66 days to actually break a habit and install a new belief.
66 days. I feel like I always hear 21 days. That's the
No.
number that's always thrown around.
That's a myth that just will not die. The real research suggests 66 days is the average point where you reach automaticity.
Yeah.
That's the point where you just do the behavior without even thinking about it.
That is a long time to rely on pure willpower.
It's an eternity. And that is exactly why the overexcited sprint fails. You run out of dopamine way before you hit day 66. So this protocol is all about bridging that gap between who you are now and who you want to be, but without triggering that biological alarm bell that screams, "Stop, this is too much change."
Okay, let's get into it then. If life is a game, we have to start where every game starts.
The character creation screen.
The source calls this identifying the avatar.
This is the setup phase, and it's so important. You can't play a role-playing game if you don't know the stats of the character you're controlling, right? The source suggests a very specific, and I'll say a somewhat painful exercise. You need to audit your current avatar.
This sounds like a self-roast.
It basically is. You write down everything that's wrong with your current character, the glitches, the bugs, the low stamina stats. Maybe your character has a procrastination debuff or an inventory just full of junk food. You have to be totally objective about the starting point.
We so often skip this. We just fantasize about the level 50 paladin we want to be, but we ignore the level 1 goblin we actually are.
Exactly. And once you have that honest audit, then you script the desired avatar, the upgraded life. The entire mission here is figuring out how to build a bridge between those two. The source says you can set this challenge for 7, 30, or 60 days, but the length matters way less than the actual structure.
All right, let's press start. We're entering level 1. And I have to say, looking at the source material, my first reaction was, this is too easy. It almost felt like a waste of time. But then I realized, that's the whole trap.
It is the trap. The rule for level 1 is incredibly simple, but it's strict. You make only one change.
One single change.
Just one. The example the source uses is someone whose current avatar has a terrible sleep schedule, waking up at 10 p.m. and then sleeping at 3 a.m. It's a complete productivity blocker.
Which, I mean, honestly, sounds like my college schedule. or my schedule last week.
Right. So the level 1 objective is simply this. Wake up at 7 a.m. That's it. You don't also have to run 5 miles. You don't have to read a book. You don't have to eat a kale salad. You just wake up.
See, but here's where I would struggle. I wake up at 7 a.m., and my brain immediately goes, okay, I'm up early. I should be productive. I should clean the house. I should write that novel. If I just wake up and stare at the wall, doesn't that feel like failing?
No, and that is exactly what you have to avoid. The source really emphasizes this. You need to master the single variable first. If you add the cleaning and the writing, you're right back to the overexcited sprint. You're just overloading the processor again.
So just wake up.
You just wake up. Even if you sit on the couch and stare at the wall, if you were awake at 7 a.m., you have level 1 for that day.
That takes a lot of restraint.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a psychological trick the source mentions here about how you frame this for yourself. You're not supposed to say, I'm going to wake up at 7 a.m. for the rest of my life.
No, that is the forever trap. The minute you tell your brain, I must do this every single day until I die, the brain feels the massive weight of that commitment. It panics. It creates performance anxiety.
It feels like a prison sentence.
It does. The nuance here is to tell yourself, I just have to do this today. You kind of lie to your brain a little. You say, look, we'll worry about tomorrow, but for this 24-hour cycle, the objective is 7 a.m.
It just bypasses that fear of commitment.
Correct. You focus only on the immediate mission. By doing that over and over, you eventually cross that 66-day threshold where the discipline phase ends. And then suddenly, you aren't trying to wake up at 7 a.m. You just are the person who wakes up at 7 a.m. It becomes a default setting.
Okay, so let's say we've mastered level 1. We're waking up consistently. Now, most people would say, great, I fixed that. Now I'm going to stop waking up early and start going to the gym instead. But that's not how a game works.
Yeah.
You don't lose your level 1 sword when you get to level 2.
Right. And this is the core mechanic of the whole system, habit stacking. When you move to level 2, you do not replace the old habit. You stack a new one on top of it. So you keep the level 1 habit waking up at 7 a.m. and you add one new habit, or you can remove a negative one.
The source gives a great example here involving phones, which I think is probably relevant to pretty much everyone listening.
Oh, yeah. It's the energy vampire concept.
Yeah.
The example was removing phone usage until 12 p.m. The whole idea is that scrolling social media first thing in the morning just puts your avatar in a low-energy reactive state.
You're spending all your dopamine before you've even gotten out of bed.
Exactly. So the stack looks like this. Level 1, which is wake up at 7 a.m., PLOS level 2, no phone till noon. You have to do both to pass the day.
And crucially, the source says you have to replace that void. You can't just take away the phone and sit there twiddling your thumbs, or the urge to scroll is going to be overwhelming.
Nature abhors a vacuum. If you remove the phone time, you need to slot in a new mechanic. The source suggests something like yoga or meditation or reading, something that gives you a different kind of stimulation.
Now, I want to highlight something that might be easy to miss here. Level 2 doesn't necessarily mean the second day.
Oh, that is a huge distinction. Thank you for pointing that out. This is not some 30 days, 30 changes kind of challenge.
Which is a huge relief.
It is. If level 1, just waking up at 7 a.m. is incredibly hard for you, you might stay on level 1 for a week or 2 weeks. You're the game designer here. You only level up when you feel like you've stabilized the current level. If you try to stack level 2 while you're still struggling to wake up, the whole tower just collapses.
That takes all the pressure off. It's not a race. It's a progression. And then you can eventually get to what the source calls the boss battles. Like level 3 could be something really drastic.
Like deleting TikTok or Instagram entirely?
The nuclear option.
The nuclear option. And replacing that time with reading a specific book. And then suddenly you look back and you've stacked 3 profound changes. You're waking up early, you're not doom scrolling in the morning, and you've deleted your biggest distraction. You've completely altered the trajectory of your day, one block at a time.
But I have to ask the skeptic's question. Why does this work better than just making a checklist? Why do we need to call it leveling up? Is it just a cute metaphor, or is there something mechanical actually happening?
It comes down to 2 things, trust and stakes. The source talks about the internal return on investment. By completing these small levels, you aren't just checking off boxes on a list. You're actually proving to your brain that you are trustworthy.
That's a powerful idea. Self-trust. We talk about trusting other people all the time, but we rarely talk about trusting ourselves.
Because most of us have a terrible track record with ourselves. When you say, I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow, and then you don't, you are actively teaching your brain that your own commands are optional. You're eroding your own authority.
You're the general giving orders, and the troops are just like, laughing at you.
Exactly. But by executing these small stacked levels, starting with just one easy thing, you are rewiring your system to believe that when you set an objective, it happens. You're building a track record of winning.
But a game needs stakes, doesn't it? You can't just win all the time without any consequence. The source introduces a restart rule that, honestly, it terrified me a little bit. It turns this from a casual game into hardcore mode.
It is definitely high stakes. The rule is, if you are on, say, level 3, but you fail to do the level 2 habit, like if you check your phone before noon, you don't just retry level 3. You go all the way back to the beginning, back to level 1.
All the way back to the start. You lose all your progress. That is brutal.
It is brutal, but think about video games. Think about a game where if you die, you lose your equipment or your experience points, your heart starts racing, you pay attention.
Loss aversion.
Exactly that. Loss aversion is a much stronger motivator for humans than the potential for gain. We will fight 10 times harder to keep what we have than to get something new. This restart rule forces you to respect the basics. It stops you from getting lazy with the level 1 habit just because you're chasing that level 3 reward.
It prevents you from building on a shaky foundation. And speaking of rewards, the source does suggest the carrot to go along with this stick.
Yes, absolutely. You need to set rewards for completing levels. Treat yourself to a nice dinner. Buy a small item you've wanted. You have to trigger that dopamine loop so your brain associates the discipline with pleasure. You're literally hacking your own neurochemistry.
Now, usually in a game, if you get stuck, you look up a walkthrough or you use a cheat code. The source calls out one specific cheat code for accelerating this entire process. And surprisingly, it's not a supplement or a cold plunge or a specific journal. It's therapy.
This was a fascinating pivot in the source material. We often think of gamification as this solitary thing, me versus the game. But the source argues that external help is the ultimate speed boost.
And the argument is framed in a purely economic way, which I found really refreshing. It wasn't about healing your inner child so much as it was about ROI. Return on investment.
Right. The comparison used is really striking. You might spend $400 or $500 on a new PlayStation without even blinking. That's just entertainment. But spending that same $400 on your mental health, people hesitate. They agonize over it.
Too expensive. I don't have the budget. All that stuff.
But the source argues that the console has very limited value. It depreciates. Whereas fixing your mental health, your own operating system, has limitless ROI. I mean, if you upgrade your ability to handle stress or to communicate or to focus, that impacts your career earnings, your relationships, your mood, your longevity.
It's an infrastructure upgrade, but let's be real. And the source acknowledges this. Finding a therapist is annoying. It's a high-friction process.
It really is, and that friction stops people from using the cheat code.
The source compares finding a therapist to dating, which is perfect.
Yeah.
You rarely marry the first person you go on a date with. You have to find the soulmate therapist.
And this is where the source specifically brings up online therapy, mentioning a service like BetterHelp. Now, we're not sponsored by them, but if you look at this strictly from a gamification perspective, the value proposition is just the reduction of friction.
It's all about speed.
Exactly. If the game objective is to find a compatible expert quickly, the traditional route is just a terrible level design. Getting a referral, driving across town, sitting in a waiting room, realizing you don't like the person, and starting all over again. It's just too slow.
It's a total grinding level.
Yeah, and the source highlights that the ability to switch therapists quickly if the vibe isn't right lets you find that soulmate match much faster. It's about efficiency and upgrading your avatar. If a tool isn't working in the game, you swap it out immediately. You don't keep using a broken sword just because it took you 3 weeks to find it.
So we've got the character, the levels, the stakes, and the cheat codes. But what about the end game? The source applies this stacking logic to huge life goals, specifically things like money and manifestation. And this is where a lot of people get, glitchy.
This really gets at the manifestation trap. You see this all over social media. People trying to manifest a reality that is so far removed from their current situation that their brain just rejects it.
Like trying to go from, I have $0 in my bank account to, I am a multimillionaire.
Correct. The gap is just too wide. It creates cognitive dissonance. Your brain says, I don't see any evidence for this, you're lying. So you end up actually developing limiting beliefs because you feel like a fraud.
So how do you gamify that without just deluding yourself?
You break it into levels, same as the habits, you ladder it up. Stage 1 might just be get a job, any job. Just prove you can generate an income.
Establish the baseline.
Then stage 2, jump your hourly rate from, say, $10 to $30. Then stage 3. Figure out how to make your monthly salary in a single week.
You don't jump to the moon, You build a staircase to get there.
And the source notes, the first million is the hardest. We hear that cliche all the time, but in this context, it makes perfect sense. It's the hardest because you are still figuring out the game mechanics. You're learning how to play. Once you understand those mechanics, once you've hacked the game, the next levels become easier because you have the skills and, crucially, the self-trust.
It really does make those huge, scary goals feel so much more manageable. You stop looking at the top of the mountain and you just look at the very next foothold. Can I make $100 today? Okay, done. Level up.
That is the whole essence of it. It removes the paralysis of the big dream.
So let's wrap this up. We've covered a lot. Character audits,
Yeah.
habit stacking, the restart rule, therapy as a cheat code. But if we boil it all down, the core philosophy here is that life is a video game and you are the creator. You are not just some NPC walking around the background of somebody else's story.
And you don't need to worry about the entire long journey ahead. The source's final piece of wisdom is so powerful. You just need to make a different decision today.
Just today.
Just today. Because physically, when you stack these small decisions, you are firing and wiring new neurons. You are literally changing the structure of your brain. You are shifting into a new timeline, one decision at a time.
I love that. So here's my final thought for you listening right now. If your life is a game, and let's assume you are currently standing at level 1, what is the single cheat code, that one small habit, you need to install tomorrow morning to start winning?
Don't overthink it. Just pick one, and don't miss the alarm.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Go level up.
See you in the next level.